Titanic Talk with Nelson and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson and you are back for another edition of Titanic Talk with my charming co-host, Alexandra Boyd, who happens to know a thing or two about not only the steamship Titanic, but the James Cameron film of the same name in which she appeared. And now she has a new documentary, Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries. She's the producer, writer, director, filmmaker, and kind of the narrator of this beautiful piece of art. And it features a lot of her Titanic co-stars reminiscing through their actual diaries of their life on the set down in Rosarito, Mexico, when they were filming Titanic. And today we're joined by one of her co-stars, Liam Tuohy, who is notorious for being the last man off the ship. Jack and Rose may have been sucked under to the icy depths, but the Baker just seemed to step right off the back, and Liam played that Baker. Now, Liam, please tell us the correct pronunciation of said Baker.
It's Chief Baker Joughin.
Joughin, and how do you spell that? Because it's unless you know how to pronounce it, you're never going to get it.
Oh, I have to do spelling, do I? Joughin.
Is that correct, Alexandra?
Yes.
You would know all these things.
I'd have gone for Joughin. Yes.
That is exactly.
Yeah.
Born, I believe, in the Isle of Man and grew up somewhere around the Liverpool area.
And tell me about the first time you remember meeting Alexandra on the set.
Oh dear. Oh, that was in our so-called 5 to 7 drinky poos, which extended into beyond midnight in the Real Del Mar Hotel. Yes, it was supposed to be just a 2-hour break away from filming and all that sort of thing. But the barman that was in charge kindly extended it every single night. And
it was an 8-hour, 2-hour happy hour.
That was it. Precisely. So we were on call quite a lot, as you can imagine, with a shoot that large. And so we would be just sitting around the lounge talking and playing cards or whatever and having fun. And that's exactly where I met Alexandra and all the other co-stars of the movie as well.
And I met her and there was alcohol involved too. I'm sensing a theme here. And maybe Liam, there was a bit of typecasting there because the Baker was actually saved by his ability to hold his alcohol. So I actually, in honor of your character, is why I have charged up for our happy hour podcast. So here is to you, sir.
I covered the brand.
There we go.
I have a glass of water here, so because it's still only 2 in the afternoon here. No, but Liam, you're making me think of just my mind is going back to the bar at the Real Del Mar. And all of us sitting there, and this one evening, actually there was more than one, but because there were Irish, Scottish, English, and a smattering of Americans, people would bring their guitar, and Brian Walsh, who from Gaelic Storm, brought his pipes, and he would just regale us with these amazing and beautiful Irish medleys. And then I remember you and Griffith got up one evening and sang Mafanwy, because he's from Wales and that's a very traditional Welsh song. You and Stuart would take the guitar and sing these traditional Scottish songs because he was Scottish. And I remember Leonardo DiCaprio's friend and assistant Jonah, he would look at us going, how do you know all these songs? How do you know all this music? And it made me think of imagining if we were really passengers on the Titanic and like the third class dance scene, that's how you pass the time. That's how we pass the time.
You're making me recall a very funny moment. One evening, Johan was called upon to sing a solo song, and he had a beautiful, Johan Gruffin, that is. He had a beautiful Welsh
who played
voice.
Third Officer Lowe? Is that right?
That's him,
anybody
exactly.
alive out there?
Anybody alive?
Anybody
Yes.
alive?
we
Of course, he was also
That's him.
Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four with the stretchy arms.
Yeah,
yes,
and he's done
and
quite
he
a lot
was
since.
Horatio Hornblower.
But Johan was called upon to sing. Now he was sitting with his back to the reception desk, and everybody else was placed in the seats facing the reception desk. And just about as he was about to sing, I got a phone call. So I went up to the reception desk to take the phone call, and I'm chatting away, and I'm been asked from Los Angeles, well, how's it going down there? Blah blah. I said, we're having a great time here, actually. Johan is about to sing a song. Can you hear him? And I did this with the phone, and no, didn't hear a thing. Well, try this. And I pushed it a little further, you know. No, still can't hear a thing. And what about this? And I did that with the phone line. And next thing, the phone line, the phone, and the receptionists all together came across the desk trying to catch it. And everybody sitting opposite the reception desk was trying to keep a straight face because they just saw the most hilarious moment they'd seen since they moved down there. And here was Johan just merrily singing his song, not knowing or not realizing that this was going on behind his back. So if only we had a video of that.
I was going to say, I wonder, you speaking about that, you know, now everything is documented through our phones, but I wonder, was James Cameron the kind of director that might have been savvy enough to say, hey, once you enter the set, turn over your phones or lock up your phones or no phones on set?
Well, there were
But-
certainly no phones, but also there was this huge sort of thing where you did not take photographs on set of, you still shouldn't take photographs on set. It's like an unwritten law that you don't take photographs. But I did, many of us had little disposable cameras. Remember those?
Yeah.
Made out of cardboard and plastic. And I had one concealed in my muff. And my yes, I know.
Very personal.
And it was quite handy. And my makeup wardrobe girl, she's like, let me pretend like I'm taking a continuity photograph of you. And that's how I have those very few images sitting on the set with a crane behind me or a few moments, because we really had to be very discreet about photographs taken, and then hide the camera somewhere. But yes, if we had phones now, I mean, I don't know how they stop people taking images. There must just be a security person all the time going, put that phone away, delete that image or whatever. But anyway, back to you, Liam, and your extraordinary character that everybody knows and remembers, because you have that triple shot, frame shot with you and Kate and Leo at that most exciting moment, just as the ship is about to vertically sink into oblivion. Tell us a little bit about that process, about that day or those days and nights on that poop deck.
Well, there were just, it was amazing. Kate actually came up to me on the set and said, listen, what's it like up there? She hadn't been up on the back of the deck at this point. And as people who watch your excellent documentary will find out, Simon Crane was the one to introduce me to it and told me it would go to 90-degree angle. So I was up on the 90-degree angle and I was strapped in, harnessed in on that. And after a few moments, it got quite comfortable. I was okay with it. And I explained that to Kate. And I said, actually, they have stuntmen either side of us. So you'll be quite safe. They've got these stunt guys who act as extras that will safeguard you on top. And the second she heard that, she said, oh, that's fine, that's fine. And off she went, and she was delighted, and there was no problems after that. Now, up on the back of that 90-degree angle deck, there were some really hairy moments, as you probably remember. And I actually had a great moment in there. The Bill Paxton, Lord rest him, came up to me and he says, you've got the funniest line in the movie. And I said, I have? Yeah, everybody's saying that. And I went back to Jim Cameron. I said, when we were about to shoot that line, and I said, you know that everybody's saying you wrote the funniest line of the movie for this part. And he said, okay, did you bring your clown nose with you? And I said, okay, point taken, Jim. So I got to say the line, went to the movie, and the line was gone. And the line was, Kate turning to me, and I look into the abyss below us, and I turn back and I say, hell of a night. And I walked out of the premiere that night of Titanic, and I bumped straight into James Cameron, and he said, "Oh, how are you, Liam? Thanks for turning up." And I said, "Hell of a movie, Jim." And he laughed and he said, "No, when we showed it to test audiences, they found it so funny at such a dark moment, we had to extract it." So I lost that wonderful line, you know, as a result of that on the back of the film. But something else I did get in there was an incident. I gather Alexandra wants me to read something from the diary. So I use that as a segue, if you like. And that was during the actual shoot itself. I walked up to Jim Cameron one night, and it was a scene that was not actually in the original script, but because of what I did, I ended up having a little nod to my late dad, whom I absolutely adored. And during the shoot, I approached Jim Cameron, clutching, I'm reading from my Titanic Diary now, which you probably see when you go to watch Ship of Dreams and Titanic Diaries. And I approached James, clutching a whiskey flask, and I said to him that I had a genuine prop for my role. Pointing to the flask, I told him my father left it to me in his will and his father to him. Ergo, it would date back to the Titanic sinking, to that time. James dismissed it. He said, "Oh no, the baker never get drunk on the fifth." And I said, Jim, but the alcoholic would always have a backup." He gave me a little knowing smile after that and just waved me away. So little did I realize that it would be sooner rather than later that this would come back, because that particular night, the wind kicked in. And because it was a sinking in icy waters, Jim was sort of freaking out, and he says, "We've got to keep shooting, we've got to keep shooting." And he looked at me and he said, "Liam, your hair doesn't move. I tell you what, hop up on that railing there and, you know, just hang on there. Give me a couple of stunt men. You jump over. They jumped over 90 feet to 100 feet of a drop onto cardboard boxes." And then he said, "Liam, you go and jump." And I looked at him horrified, and he says, "No, just go to jump, change your mind, turn back into the railing, reach into your pocket for the flask, and take a swig of that as well." So when I eventually saw it at the cast premiere, I realized that there was left intact my little homage to my late dad, whom I absolutely adored, his flask in Titanic.
Worth a fortune to the
I
Titanic.
gotta frame mine.
Zach Douglas was already trying to take it from you in the Q&A
Yeah.
from our screening, wasn't he?
Yes, I'm still defending his offers. I'm just considering all the various offers that are coming in for it.
Oh.
I
Yes,
joke. I jest.
I know it's worth you know, it's worth a lot, these props. And well, especially it's something to you actually has no price because it was your father's, and you've just managed to make a lovely sort of personal underscore to its use in the film. But yes, we learned during shooting Ship of Dreams Titanic Movie Diaries just how valuable some of these props and costumes have become. I believe Kate's pink sinking coat has just gone on, or it will go on auction in a few weeks' time, and its starting price is $50,000. So
Oh,
yes, and there are
you have me
multiples of those.
thinking.
There are multiples of those. But Nelson, you have a question.
I have a question for Liam, because there's such a memorable shot when the ship is making its final plunge and we see the stern go under, but we see your figure we see the white uniformed chef sort of, legs akimbo, standing on it just as it goes down. It's such a memorable shot. Liam, was that actually you? Was that a digital recreation of you? Tell me about what you filmed
I think
for that.
he sort of finagled that to make it look like I was there with that going down. Like they shot the sequence and then just doctored it
But
in with the
did you
water and all
stand in
that
front
stuff.
of a green screen so they could put you on the ship, or was
Oh
that
yeah,
just all digital?
no, they had me do all. They did various versions on the actual poop deck itself, 90 degrees in the air, in a separate studio where they, faked the whole thing with green screens. So it was multiple takes, various different ways of shooting all that sequence. So they were quite easily able to feign the actual event itself, adding in all the water and all that in post production. It was no problem. I actually didn't get into the water at all until the Carpathia rescue sequences. So I was never in the water for anything.
What didn't we see in Titanic that you filmed, Liam?
Well, the Carpathia rescue sequences, there is some of them are in the actual cut that's out there, but the deleted scenes had me walking behind Ismay having been rescued. That was deleted from the master cut. And also, there was a wonderful scene which I was so sad to see taken out, where the baker, realizing that there weren't enough lifeboats, decided he'd start tossing out deck chairs. So they shot that sequence, and actually, David Warner and Billy Zane are marching up the deck, chasing after Jack and Rose and looking for them wherever they may be. And they bump me out of the way, and I just give them a look, and I pick up deck chairs and I toss it over the side, and then I take a swig of a different container of whiskey on that particular occasion. So all of that was shot, and it's in the extras that are in the 10th anniversary release of Titanic. All those deleted scenes, it's contained in there.
The fans are calling for a full fat version of this film. They would sit and watch 6 hours of that film. Yeah. Just to see everything. Yeah. And of course, they're all very familiar with the deleted scenes as well. They've pointed my deleted scene out to me, and which is, it's always fun to find those pieces. But no, they are desperate for the first cut, which would be all of everything linked together, which is probably about 5 hours long. Who knows what the next iteration of Titanic after the 4K 3D that we've just had in cinemas. I think there's a rumor that there's a 4K Blu-ray coming out for the collectors.
Yeah, John Lando was asked about that the other day, in fact, and he confirmed it, and then he said, oops, maybe I should have checked with Disney Plus first or whatever.
Well, they'll have to do it now.
Exactly.
Hey, Liam, because you played a real life character, the baker was not a fictional character. What, other than what you may have read about him, have you had any real life encounters with his family, his descendants at all? Have you been motivated to try and find out?
Actually, on Facebook and Instagram and the rest of them, Twitter and all those, there's a daily surge of people talking about Titanic. It's unending. And on one occasion, about 6 months ago, some of the baker's relatives actually contacted me. I think they're a grandnephew or a grandniece or something like that. And they were so proud that he was their relative, and they were complimenting me and my portrayal of their relative. So I was chuffed with that one, to say the least. I was very, very happy with it.
Maybe you'll meet them at a Titanic convention. Surely there must be an opportunity for that.
Yeah, there's actually one coming up in August in Las Vegas, and they've been on to me asking me would I participate. So I'm actually in negotiations for that at the moment. They want me to make a stage appearance and just sign a few autographs and that sort of thing at it, And it's a massive crowd that's going along to it, seemingly. And I'm actually prepared now that you, oh, lovely segue, by the way, Nelson. I'm
That's what
actually
I do.
prepared. I'm prepared for the event. If I can just show you the following.
Ah.
There it is. The baker's outfit, the baker's hat. Doo-doo. And also,
Now that can't be the one that you that can't be your costume, or is that a recreation? Tell us,
no,
where does that come from?
A recreation. And another recreation, another Titanic fan. His name is Stephen Proto, I believe. And I think he's got Titanic life belts or some site on Facebook and those.
He's in
And
Oklahoma, I believe. Yes, I follow him. He
yeah,
sews Titanic reproduction life belts. They're beautiful.
like this one.
Yes.
But
Can
are
you
they
believe
functional?
that? Yes. I'm not, but yes, I'm being nice to him.
I wouldn't get it wet though.
No, I don't think so. But it's extremely
Actually,
heavy.
on that note, you know that we reproduced some of your scenes with a stunt crew in Atlanta for the film, because, you know, there was very limited amounts of Titanic we could use in a film. So we recreated a lot of it, you know, as you tell your memories. And I sewed all of the Titanic life belts. I started with one and I showed a photograph of Drew modeling it to my producers. And Nick goes, "Oh yeah, can you make like 7 more?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because of course every stunt performer had to have a life belt. I think I made about 6 and we kept swapping them around. But the inserts were sponges. They were like car wash sponges from Home Depot.
Yeah.
So they were actually very protective of them as they were tumbling down the recreated poop deck that we made. No, I think actually tumbling down with those pieces of cork would have been quite painful, actually.
I want to find out from Liam what life was like after Titanic. Obviously, it was one of the biggest movies of all time, so you know it does all sorts of things for you. But as we find out in Alexandra's documentary, for some people, it prevented them from future work. It sort of worked against them, you know, and in other ways, it propelled them to other things. So, Liam, what happened to you professionally and personally after Titanic?
Well, actually, I did some work. I worked on quite a number of productions and that over the years, but it was a Murphy's Law situation for me. The agent I actually had at the time had been misbehaving in her own career and had been reported to SAG and to the Department of Labor and all that, and she lost her agency license. So at the worst possible time, I lost my agent. And it took me quite some time to get another one and sort it out from there. And also remember, people weren't as aware as they are now of Titanic and the impact overall, you know, the overall sort of blast that had out there was definitely return business with the fans. But it didn't have the same impact upon the business as it does nowadays. I mean, anytime I meet anybody within the entertainment industry, oh, Titanic, oh, talk to me. But it wasn't that wasn't the case back then. It was just to them another movie or whatever. So it took some time for it to, if you like, get its legend under its belt and become the mammoth thing that it is today, you know.
Well, I think what you're talking about, and again, it goes back to our super fans in a film, is that they were all very young when they first saw the film. Like it made a very strong impression to a 6-year-old or an 11-year-old or a 13-year-old. So it was not grown adults, shall we say, who in 1998 were swept away by this film. It was these very young people who thought they were watching potentially a fictional story about a big ship that sank with this beautiful Romeo and Juliet love story. And then as they became more engrossed and more just passionate about this, they realized, oh my gosh, this actually happened. This was a historical event. And it sort of expanded their experience and their knowledge of something that literally probably as a child started off just as another movie they would have watched. And Ilka Sophie talks about it. She's from Germany. She talks about it was the first film that I wanted to know more about these people and get inside these characters and just and everything. It had an extraordinary impact on young people. And in fact, our co-podcast presenters Brittany Butler and Ethan Brem have just done one of their episodes where she points out that the Nickelodeon Children's Audience Award choice for that year was not an animation, was not a musical or a comedy. It was Titanic. That all these young kids were absolutely blown away by that film. And I think that's where that time factor you're talking about comes in, is that it took them into their adult, mature adult years for them now to be holding keepers of the flame of Titanic.
I was a lifelong Titanic person. Alexandra, less so. I mean, we through our friendship, we expanded your Titanic enthusiasm. Liam, where did Titanic fall in your life? Before the movie version in which you starred, were you a Titanic enthusiast? Did you know the story? Had you seen A Night to Remember?
I did, and that was my biggest mistake, actually, not rewatching A Night to Remember, because I was trying to be true to the character and not do my version of Chief Baker Joughin, and not. It was Charles Rose, I believe, is the actor in A Night to Remember, and I didn't want to emulate.
Marvelous.
I didn't want to go in and sort of be compared to what he was doing. So I decided not to watch it, and I was sorry afterwards I didn't, because I'd forgotten much of A Night to Remember, because I'd seen it as a child back in Dublin, and I should have gone back in and looked at it again and realized the great contribution that he made to the movie. And if I'd done that, perhaps I may have had a different approach to Titanic's director, James Cameron, and said, listen, you need to show him a little more doing this and baking the cakes and serving at the table and things like that. It would have given him a presence which is lacking in the version that's out there. You only see him for the very first time when Kate falls down and he picks her up and he says, I've got you, miss. And that's the very first time you see the baby as the ship is sinking. And that's where I feel it was remiss more of me, not of James Cameron, but more of me not to do that extra research and go into James Cameron's store and say, listen, I think you need to, just a suggestion, but I think you need to establish the character a little more, because he told me that he wrote Jack and Rose and the sinking of the ship, their characters, out of what happened to Baker. So basically, that's what you're looking at. It's three divided into one person situation, or one expanded out to three, really, I should say.
Well, because he could imagine that very dramatic moment of the three of you and their presence being the last people off the ship. And of course, it leads perfectly into the, not the door, but the piece of paneling that she's floating on and so forth, which is also based on a Chinese sailor who was rescued because he was floating on a piece of wood and he was rescued into the lifeboats. So, you have to give James Cameron quite a bit of credit of sort of borrowing those true stories, enough of them to fold it into what he put into the fictional side of the story.
So Liam, you said, we saw you, go down with the ship, and you just told us about how you filmed a scene where you were rescued onto the Carpathia. In between that, did you film stuff in the water? Like, I don't recall seeing you in the water. You may have been one of the flailing people.
Absolutely not. There was nothing. The only time I was ever in the water was the very last thing I shot while working on Titanic, in fact. And it was an approach to the upturned lifeboat. So we had to wade through the water to get to the upturned lifeboat. There was the late Bernard Fox, Colonel Archibald Gracie, whom I miss. I dearly miss that man. He was a wonderful person in my life for many years afterwards. We became a very close friend. We were
and
best
TV
pals.
fans remember him as Dr. Bombay for all those years on Bewitched.
Very much so. And he was on that. Also, Lighthauler was on it, and also Craig Kelly, who played the officer, the radio officer. And we were approaching, I always remember, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but we were approaching the upturned lifeboat, wading through the water. And I heard a thump, splash, and I looked around to see Jim Cameron dunking Craig Kelly into the water. And I just cracked up laughing. And Craig goes, flutters me, and he starts pointing at me. And I gave Jim Cameron a look. And he says, yes, I know what that look is, Liam. And I do remember the baker never got his hair wet, so don't worry. And then we went on to film that little sequence,
What a
You're intriguing me now.
Anecdote to end on. That was perfect. Craig got dunked and you didn't. Because history showed he never got his hair wet.
Yes, and that's what he claimed in the court findings when he was at the inquiry following the Titanic. He said that he stepped off and just eased into the water, never got his hair wet, and it wasn't even a proper splash or anything. The water just took him in there as the ship sank.
Oh, Liam, thank you so much. My gosh, I know with all our guests, we could sit here all afternoon and just tell story after story after story. And we might, once we've been around everybody, might have to start again and bring you back and hear about your story.
I want to find out more about your friendship with Bernard Fox. That's because Colonel Gracie wrote his own account after the disaster. He had a published account from his point of view, and but I do want to hear more about your friendship too.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited.